Good morning. My name is Jim Palmer, and I'm the Executive Director of the Wisconsin Professional Police Association, or WPPA. Currently representing more than 10,000 members from over 300 local association affiliates, the WPPA is far and away Wisconsin's largest law enforcement group. Our mission is to protect and promote public safety, as well as the interests of the dedicated men and women that serve to provide it. It was in that vein that several years ago, we began to produce an annual poll with the assistance of the St. Norbert College Strategic Research Institute to gauge the public perceptions on a wide variety of issues, law enforcement issues and challenges facing not only the officers on our streets, but the greater public as well. This year, we just concluded our 6th annual poll, also conducted by St. Norbert College, and we are very excited and thrilled to share the results, which we believe are the most revealing we've received to date. We're also excited because presenting the results in this format is very new to us and our organization. Every year we attempt to pose new and interesting questions, and I think the outcome of this year's results are fascinating. The WPPA prides itself in asking the tough questions facing law enforcement today, and for using the invaluable insights provided by the people it serves to advance a public dialogue about the future of policing in Wisconsin. If you're watching this live or after the fact, as this video will be posted on our website at WPPA.com following the event, we appreciate your interest, and we hope to continue to lead the discourse as it relates to criminal justice and policing in Wisconsin. Getting into the findings, every year we've asked, we've posed questions regarding, to gauge public perception rather, about how people feel about certain governmental priorities. And this year, and in fact all 6 years running, keeping the community safe from crime far and away received the highest priority amongst our respondents. And we're gratified by these results. It far surpassed improving the local economy and well above holding the line on taxes and government spending. There are no significant differences by demographics, and it's one of the few things perhaps these days that people can agree upon. We also wanted to gauge public perception on a variety of issues related to their local police force, how people feel about their local police force and the job that it does in their communities. When asked whether your local police force approves or disapproves of how it handles its job, 85% indicated their approval, 45% of them strongly approve of their local police force. Notably, 62% of non-white respondents and 89% of white respondents indicated their approval. And that obviously is a significant distinction by race. When asked whether having a well-funded police force improves quality of life, 93% of the respondents indicated their agreement with that. And again, there was another distinction by race, whereas non-white respondents agreed to the rate of 79%. When asked whether officers spend about the right amount of time, too little, or too much time in their neighborhoods, 73% of the respondents indicated that officers spend about the right amount of time in their neighborhoods. Only 20% indicated too little. Interestingly, non-white respondents who say about the right that officers spend about the right amount of time has grown 3 years running, from 27% to 41% and 64% over the last 3 years, respectively. Most notably, only 5% of the respondents said law enforcement spends too much time in their neighborhoods. Lastly, on this area, we asked whether people feel that the job of being a police officer is more or less dangerous than it was 5 years ago. 49% of the respondents indicated their belief that it's more dangerous, and only 42% indicated that it's about the same. Most notably, 2/3 of the non-white respondents believe that the job is less safe than it was 5 years ago. Concealed carry issues have been a hot topic not only in Wisconsin, but all across the country. And we've asked some questions that we posed in prior polls, and we've come up with some new ones for this year to fit the current environment as well. When asked whether Wisconsin is safer since the law was changed in 2011 to legalize the concealed carrying of weapons, 39% indicated their belief that the state is safer, whereas 21% indicated that it's about the same. Those that indicated that Wisconsin is less safe since concealed carry became the law here has nearly doubled since 2017. And there are significant differences by community size, age, and gender, and surprisingly, more non-white respondents feel Wisconsin is safer since concealed carry was acted a few years ago. When asked whether they favor or oppose allowing teachers to carry guns in schools, only 39% indicated that they support such a move, and 57% oppose that. Most notably, 64% of females oppose allowing teachers to carry guns in schools, compared to 50% of males. We also asked whether people favor or oppose allowing citizens to legally carry concealed weapons without any training, otherwise known as constitutional carry. This is a proposal that's come up time and time again over the last several legislative sessions. And overwhelmingly, 94% of the respondents in our poll indicated that they oppose allowing teachers to carry concealed weapons. They oppose allowing citizens to legally carry concealed weapons without any training. And again, as in a few other areas, notably, there were no statistical differences by any demographic group. We next wanted to gauge some perceptions about racism and the law enforcement's use of deadly force. When asked how much of a problem do you feel racism is in our society, 38% indicated a major problem, and 42% indicated that it's somewhat of a problem. But of those that identified racism as a problem in our society, 88% of them were females and 71% were males. We also asked, when law enforcement officers use deadly force, how much of the time do you believe is necessary and justified? And here it was interesting. There appears to be a growth in non-white skepticism. That is, those respondents that say that some of the time it is necessary and justified, or it's never justified. Those results have increased over the last 3 years. We also wanted to gauge perceptions about public perceptions of law enforcement shootings here in Wisconsin and compare those against these statistics that we're the only organization in Wisconsin to maintain. When asked to agree with the following statement, most of the people who are shot by law enforcement officers in Wisconsin are African American or member of a minority group. 22% rather indicated that they strongly agree, and 34% indicated that they somewhat agree. The reality is that just in 2017, 57% of the individuals shot by law enforcement officers were white, and in 2016 that number jumped to 70%. When asked whether in the past year how many people fatally shot by Wisconsin police officers do you believe were armed, 41% said some, and 3% said none, and 31% said most. The reality is that in 2017, 92% of the individuals fatally shot by law enforcement officers in this state were armed, and that in 2016, that number was 100%. For the last several years, we've also asked about body cameras. Not surprisingly, perhaps, we asked, would you favor or oppose requiring law enforcement officers to wear body video cameras? The results in favor of such a measure have been significant over the last 4 years. This year, they were overwhelming at 94% of those that indicated that they support such a move. And in fact, it's the highest score we've received in the 4 years we've been doing polling on this question, and a significant increase from the 84% support that we received just last year. We also wanted to gauge some drug policy and, some perceptions about drug policies here in Wisconsin. When asked whether marijuana should be legal, 39% of the respondents indicated that it should be legal for medical and recreational purposes, and 45% indicated that it should be legal only for medical purposes. We were amazed by this result, quite frankly, because only 15% said that it shouldn't be made legal at all. That's not a result that we anticipated going into the poll. Along the same lines, we asked, do you think police officers should treat people addicted to opioids as criminal offenders or persons in need of care and treatment? This also surprised us in the sense that 77% of the respondents in our poll indicated that people addicted to opioids should be treated with care and treatment as opposed to being treated as criminal offenders. And as in a few other areas, there were no significant differences by any demographic group. That concludes our presentation of the highlights from this year's poll. But we genuinely appreciate the interest and attention in these issues, and we look forward to using this poll, as we have in years past, to go around the state and try and lead a public discourse about policing in Wisconsin and throughout the country as well. As I mentioned, we're the only statewide group in the nation that conducts such an effort, and we really are trying to take a different approach, and we're excited about these results. At this time, I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have. If you're watching this streaming, there will be a number on the website that you can utilize. We do have a few reporters here in the studio with us today, and so we'll go to those questions first.
Jim, you kind of touched on it on the beginning, but why do you guys conduct this, and what can you learn from the results of the poll?
Well, I think it can really guide our organization significantly. We lobby more than any law enforcement group in the state, and on a wide range of issues affecting not only public safety, but criminal justice. And being sensitive to the sentiments of the people we serve, we think is fundamentally important in the policies that we pursue. And it's also good for our members throughout the state to have a better understanding of how people feel. On the issue of body cameras, for example, to see such overwhelming support, it's been high every year that we've been asking that question in particular. And I think that has probably helped soften the views of some officers that might have otherwise been a little hesitant or less than trusting about that new technology.
What would you say is the biggest change, if any, from the study last year, or maybe even the past 3 years?
Well, I don't know that there has been a big change necessarily. One of the things we look for are trends, and to be able to see similar results year in and year out helps, I think, solidify the results that we received in a prior year, if that makes sense. I think one of the changes that I would point to is that it's clear that non-white respondents, or the non-white members of our state, do have a positive perception of law enforcement, but it is clearly there's a distinction between how non-whites in Wisconsin feel, minorities feel, compared to white. And I think that's something that we should, the law enforcement community and the public should embrace and figure out a way how we can communicate and be more sensitive to those distinctions.
How would people hear these results, however they're hearing about them? How can you guys turn that into changing policies or changing the way that police interact with their communities?
Well, I think how can we make sure that these results, say that, could you ask that again, I'm sorry? How
can these results equal change that people can see in their local law enforcement?
Well, sure. Well, one example in particular is, again, go back to the example of body cameras. I think, if you went back 4 or 5 years ago, if you were to poll law enforcement officers in the state, there was probably not a great deal of support for body cameras because it is such a new and emerging technology. Clearly, we've been asking questions on this issue for 4 years straight now, and the support continues to be overwhelming and continues to grow. And I think that makes law enforcement officers, I hope, more sensitive and accepting of that technology and recognizing that accountability is not a bad thing, and especially when you put that in the context of how people feel about law enforcement, and that is their approval rating is overwhelmingly high.
Who participates in this survey? Like, how do you find people who are answering your poll questions?
Sure. We rely on the people at the St. Norbert College Strategic Research Institute to conduct a poll using the demographics of the state. And we identify the issue areas that we'd like to gauge perceptions on and allow the scientists to frame the questions, because we really are trying to get an objective view and assessment of how people feel about law enforcement, about what they think the government should do relative to law enforcement, how they should fund them, so that's what I would say.
This study, this is the 6th year of the study?
Correct.
Was there a need for this when you decided to do it, or was there something particular that happened to do this study?
I wouldn't point to anything particular. I think it was our need to better connect with the community and allow our officers to better connect with the communities that they serve. And being aware of their perceptions and their sentiments is, I think, fundamentally important to that, especially as it relates, as I mentioned, to the public policies that we pursue through the Wisconsin State Legislature.
Let's if you don't mind, can we turn to some of the online questions?
Sure.
Jim, you want to say something?
Sure. No, at this time, we're happy to entertain some the online questions. It sounds like we might have a few, and so we'll take the first one now.
Not at this time.
Even better. Is there any other?
Any other questions from you guys?
Yeah, I mean, how important is it for you guys to respond to or understand kind of the perception of law enforcement throughout the state?
Just to understand the perception of law enforcement or the public's?
The public's perception of law.
Yeah. We think it's fundamentally important. I mean, clearly, whether it's the President's Task Force on 21st Century Policing or countless other studies that have been done over the last few years, post-Ferguson in particular, it's clear that there is a void. There is a communication breakdown. There are relationship issues between law enforcement and some of the communities that they serve, particularly communities of color. And so being able to have a better understanding of how people feel about law enforcement, we hope can help us bridge that divide.
Do you think that's happened in the last 6 years?
I would like to think so, at least in Wisconsin. We, as an organization, the WPPA has been working to reach out with leaders of communities of color to maintain an ongoing dialogue so that we can, and it's a dialogue that it has to be ongoing as opposed to a topic of discussion following a controversial incident. And then it seems like, based on past history, have a controversial incident, and pretty much as soon as the national news vehicles leave our community or leave the state, the public dialogue seems to end. And we wanted to be able to have a mechanism or a vehicle to maintain that dialogue and to drive that discourse. And the poll has been very helpful for that purpose.
Talk about relationships between policing and communities of color in the last 6 years through your poll. Have you seen those get better or worse, or have they varied?
They have varied. I think they have improved. We think, one of the things that we'd like to credit ourselves with, perhaps, is acknowledging that there's an issue, and sometimes doing that allows the floodgates of communication to open up, and for us, it enables us to have a dialogue in a way that we wouldn't before. It's easy for people, and you see this particularly in law enforcement outside of Wisconsin, to kind of dismiss the views of their critics. And we're trying to embrace our critics, but at the same time inform them, and that's why we include information relative to the reality of police shootings and compare that to the perceptions that people have to try and educate them as well.
Anything else? I'll just say goodbye.
Pardon?
Anything else that you want?
No, I don't have anything. I credit those that are here. Your questions were so good that no one online had to pose anything, so thank you very much. And thank you to all of you for watching this presentation. If anyone would like to see the full report from St. Norbert College, you are welcome to contact me directly, and we'll provide it to you as soon as we're able. So, thank you. Oh.
That's a question.
All right.
Have you seen an increase in the amount of people who oppose teachers carrying guns in school in light of the recent Texas shooting?
Well, this is actually the first year we've posed that question. Our poll went to the field following the shooting in Parkside, Florida. And it's not really an issue that's ever surfaced seriously here in Wisconsin, but clearly the reaction of a lot of lawmakers was that perhaps this is something that we should look at. The president made a number of comments seeming support of that kind of move, and so we wanted to see how Wisconsinites felt about it. So the results that we have are only for this year. It's a new question.
Any other additional questions that you added this year?
Questions regarding legalizing marijuana and how people feel that those addicted to opioids should be treated, whether as someone in need of care and treatment or as criminal offenders. These are two issues that have continued to grow over the last few years, and so we always try and add some more current component of new to highlight an emerging issue and incorporate that into the poll, in addition to those that we carry over historically. All right, I think now we're actually done, so thank you again for tuning in. and we appreciate your attention.